Welcome to the And One. I'm Kate Douglas, and we begin our show tonight with a basketball game that ended not because the clock hit triple zeros, but because a brawl broke out, first between the players, then the coaches, and then the fans watching in the stands. Our own Jason Wechsler is live outside the Palace of Auburn Hills in Detroit with the story. Jason, what happened in tonight's game?
Well, Kate, it's something that I never thought I would see in an NBA game. Fans and players getting into it in the stands. Ben Wallace of the Detroit Pistons was unhappy with a foul from the Pacers' Ron Artest. Tempers flaring high in this game. It was a rematch of the Eastern Conference Finals. And again, it's something I didn't think I would see. Fans actually getting involved into it, and the commissioner's office is going to have to take a long, hard look at this one. Again, Ben Wallace and Ron Artest expected to be the two players most heavily penalized. We'll see here in the video. Ben Wallace gets slapped in the back of the head while going to the hoop, and he doesn't like that. Ron Artest gets pushed back. The officials get involved. The bench is pretty much clear for the most part. You see Ben Wallace all up in there. Rasheed Wallace as well, another hothead for the Detroit Pistons. He's pushing and he's shoving. And then later on, this is where it gets crazy, Kate. Ron Artest is going to go into the stands and chase down a fan he believed threw beer on him. But the funny part was he had the wrong guy. Ron Artest goes after the wrong guy and attempts to punch him in the face. Steven Jackson gets involved in the stands as well. Just an ugly, ugly scene. You'll see Rasheed Wallace. He's going into the stands as well. Just 3 armed police officers there, and they really couldn't contain what would happen here. The game wouldn't even finish. Now, the NBA Commissioner's Office is yet to hand out suspensions, but again, Artest will be suspended for quite some time.
Now, Jason, what do you think? Will the Pacers play tonight?
I think the Pacers are absolutely going to play tonight. All NBA games are expected to go on as scheduled. The NBA and the Commissioner's Office has to prove they're above an incident like this, and they will take extra security measures, but the games will go on as scheduled.
Great. Thanks, Jason.
Thanks, Kate.
We'll be following this game later tonight, but before the break, we'll be catching up on some D3 football highlights. Stay with us. To the And One, I'm Kate Douglas, and we begin our show tonight with a basketball game that ended not because the clock hit triple zeros, but because a brawl broke out, first between the players, then the coaches, and then the fans watching. Our own Jason Wechsler is live outside the Palace of Auburn Hills in Detroit with the story. Jason, what happened in tonight's game?
Well, Kate, it's something that I never thought that I would see. It was a brawl between two teams, which is something we have seen, but fights in the NBA typically last a few seconds, a few minutes. The officials get involved and nothing bad happens. But this one, the players and the fans would get involved. Ron Artest and Ben Wallace of the Pacers and the Pistons, respectively, expected to get the heaviest of suspensions, as you'll see here in the video. They're the ones that actually start the incident. Ron Artest fouling Ben Wallace, slapping him in the back of the head as he's going for a layup. And Ben Wallace didn't take kindly to that, understandably so. Tempers flaring high in this one. It's a rematch of the Eastern Conference Finals. The Pistons coming into the game just 4-3, not the start that they wanted as they're trying to repeat as NBA champions. And the Pacers with a little bit of pep to their step. And Ron Artest stepping into the stands right there. He goes after a fan that he thinks poured a beer on him. And the funny thing was, he had the wrong guy. Again, Ron Artest, the guy that we know has anger issues, and he certainly didn't do himself any favors tonight. The NBA Commissioner's Office is yet to hand out suspensions, but again, Ron Artest and Ben Wallace will be the most heavily suspended players without a doubt.
Great. Well, now what do you think, Jason? Will the Pacers play tonight?
They absolutely will play tonight, Kate. They play against the Orlando Magic. All NBA games tonight are expected to go on as scheduled. Obviously, there will be a bit of heightened security, but the NBA has to prove that they're above this type of violence. Reporting from the Palace of Auburn Hills, I'm Jason Wechsler.
Great. Thanks, Jason. We'll be following up on this game tonight, but before the break, we'll be looking at some D3 football highlights. Stay with us. Welcome to the And One. I'm Kate Douglas, and we begin our show tonight with a basketball game that ended not because the clock hit triple zeros, but because a brawl broke out, first between players, then coaches, and then the fans watching in the stands. Our own Jason Wechsler is live outside the Palace of Auburn Hills in Detroit with the story. Jason, what happened in tonight's game?
Well, Kate, it's unlike anything that I've ever reported in. The entire city of Detroit still in disbelief, players around the league still in disbelief that there was a fight between players that actually got the fans involved. Tons of chaos here, and again, we still can't believe it. The commissioner's office will have to act, and we expect them to act tomorrow. Ron Artest of the Detroit Pistons and Ben Wallace, as you'll see here on the video, Ben Wallace of the Detroit Pistons, excuse me, Ron Artest of the Indiana Pacers, fouling Ben Wallace hard as he went to the basket, actually slapped him in the back of the head. You'll see Ben Wallace doesn't take kindly to that, and who would? Tempers flaring high in this game. It's a rematch of last year's Eastern Conference Finals. The Pacers, off to the start that they want to be, they're 6-2. The Pistons are just 4-3. Again, tempers flaring high with a guy like Ron Artest, and you'll see here he dives into the stands, goes after a fan that he believes spills beer on him, but he goes after the wrong guy. And that's frankly just unacceptable for players to get involved with fans like that. You'll see Rasheed Wallace of Detroit going into the fans as well. Only 3 uniformed police officers there, and it took them a while to restore order. They wouldn't even finish the game. Now, the NBA Commissioner's Office is yet to hand out suspensions, but again, Ron Artest will be suspended probably for the rest of the season. We'll have to see.
Now, what do you think, Jason? Will the Pacers play tonight?
Pacers will play tonight. They're scheduled to go against the Orlando Magic on the road. The NBA has to prove that they're above this type of incident and above this type of violence. The commissioner will make sure all games go on tonight as scheduled.
Great. Thank you, Jason.
Thanks, Kate.
We'll be following the story, but before the break, we'll be catching up on some D3 football highlights. Stay with us.
Remember, you got to toss it back to her at that.
Welcome to the N1. I'm Kate Douglas, and we begin our show tonight with a basketball game that ended not because the clock hit triple zeros, but because a brawl broke out, first between the players, then the coaches, and then the fans watching. Our own Jason Wexler is live outside the Palace of Auburn Hills in Detroit with the story. Jason, what happened in tonight's game?
Well, Kate, it's a game in which we saw something that we've never seen before. Fans and players getting into it during the game. Now, it's atypical because obviously fans don't usually get into it with the players. But this fight would spell into the stands. A few players, including the Pacers' Ron Artest and the Pistons' Ben Wallace, who incited the incident, are expected to possibly be handed lawsuits as a result of this. The NBA is not happy, and in a league where their attendance is struggling, this will not help matters. As you'll see here in the video, again, like I mentioned, Ron Artest slapping Ben Wallace in the back of the head. Ben Wallace not happy about it. He pushes him, understandably so. And that's when all the chaos ensues. Rasheed Wallace, Ben Wallace's teammate, going there to back him up. Steven Jackson getting into it for Indiana as well. And then again, Kate, that's just one thing. Players between players is something we've seen before. What we haven't seen before is this. Ron Artest going into the stands and going after a fan who he believes spilled beer on him, but he went after the wrong guy. Now, Ron Artest, the guy we know has trouble controlling his anger, and he didn't do anything to help himself tonight. The interesting thing about this, they wouldn't even finish the game. The final score would stand at 97-82. The officials were really not able to restore order. There were only 3 uniformed police officers there. And again, it's unlike something we've ever seen. The NBA has a lot to do. The commissioner's office is yet to issue official suspensions, but expect Ron Artest to be the most heavily penalized. Kate?
Now, what do you think, Jason? Will the Pacers play tonight?
The Pacers will absolutely play tonight, Kate. The thing about it is the NBA has to prove that they're above this type of violence, and all games will go on as scheduled. Reporting live from the Palace of Auburn Hills, I'm Jason Wexler.
Thanks, Jason.
Thanks.
We'll be following this game tonight, but after the break, we'll be catching up on some D3 highlights. Stay with us.
You did.